Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
And from OSHA Region 3. This is Safety Wars for Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. We are, we had family. Hold on here. Oh, now that's better. We had some family obligations the last couple of nights, graduations, that sort of thing. Now, it's nice to see, my daughter graduated elementary school. So it's nice to see a lot of the times, so in the yearbook they have like baby photos and then current photos. Sort of like the popular thing on social media now is, in 2020, this is how I looked, and in 2025, this is how I looked. With it's children, it's nice because you see them younger and then you see them older, right? But I tell you what, some of you other folks should watch what you're putting out on the internet there. That's all I have to say. Me included, right? However, I've gotten better. We'll say that. I've gotten better. I've been told that by many people. But, it is what it is. A lot has gone on, especially with the war. We're not going to be talking about that, at least towards the beginning of the show. More towards the end of the show, because of, I don't know what to tell you here. So, I guess I gotta say this. I advocate for the U.S. military. What it is. I'm a patriot. I advocate for whatever their mission is. And I'm here to support it in any way I can. That being said, I'm not in control of American foreign policy. I don't have enough information to be in control of or to make an expert comment on that. All that I wish for and pray for is a speedy end to any conflict out there. And I'm going to tell everybody, please pray for peace with that. And if that's controversial, you disagree with it, well, then you disagree with it. That being said, what can we do as Americans, as Europeans, as Israelis? I know we do have listeners in Israel. Hopefully you're paying more attention to what's going on around here than you are to a podcast from some guy in OSHA Region 3. So that's all I'll say on that. What can we do? One, support the troops, number one. Number two would be to make sure that you're prepared. Probably, so we talk about disaster preparedness every September here on Safety Wars. We've been doing that ever since even before there was a Safety Wars. We've been doing that, talking about it, sending out emails, talking about it. But we're all out there. It'd probably be a good time to update your emergency planning for your household, for your business, for your community, your group of friends, which is what we recommend is, groups of friends and your neighbors, things that prepare for whatever disasters are out there. The government, to my knowledge, still has not updated their policy where the worst case scenario they know from a nuclear terrorist attack is 3 10-kiloton devices in 3 different cities on the same day, or at least in a short period of time. Government has not updated those preparation things, right? Their policy, whatever you want to call it. But since we can't control what they do in Washington or in Tel Aviv or in Tehran or anywhere like that, or in Europe, Ukraine, Moscow, since we can't control it, we can control what we do, how we prepare for disasters, how we prepare for emergencies. So I'm going to suggest you go out there and prepare. What do we do? Basic things. Be prepared if you can. And again, for a lot of people, this is not realistic and they're not able to do this. 3 days of food and water per person. That would be a start. Getting your paperwork together. Don't forget that paperwork. Getting medicines, getting a disaster kit. It's all in there. You can look back. The nation of Finland recommended that, and we had a lot of activity here on Safety Wars, those September programs that we have, and everything else. So I got to stop hitting the table because the camera's jumping up and down. And that's what I'm going to recommend you do with that. That being said, let's go to our first commercial break, and we're going to go and do what we need to do.
Safety Wars is streaming now.
SafetyFM.com.
Have you listened or watched the Safety War show? It does stream live on the radio and on the streamer-emers that we have. So if you have not taken a listen to Jim Posel and what the hell he's doing every evening with Safety Wars, I would strongly encourage you to take a view or take a listen, whichever option is available for you, and take a listen to what the hell he has going on. It will take some deep dives.
In a world where danger lurks in every corner, one man stands as a beacon of hope. Jim Posel, a veteran safety expert with over 3 decades of experience, now bringing his knowledge to you with Safety Wars. Engaging, informative, and always relevant. That's Safety Wars. Join the safety revolution with Safety Wars, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts and videos.
And that is Safety War. We're choking skies, which means we're going to talk about air quality. So we've been talking for the last couple of weeks on the Canadian wildfires. So we have a current map here. Let me... Pardon me. Yes, allergies are still in the extreme. We have a current map of, let's see if we can do a share screen here, of what the, right? So here we go. I mean, the software here updated, right? So that's where we go. Those are the active fires. I mean, it's all through Midwestern to Western Canada and there. And if we look at the air quality index here, this is what we're looking at. We're really not looking at, no, we have pretty good air quality here. This is for ozone and particulate matter, PM10. We'll overlay PM2.5. We're at the gispub.epa.gov, right, website here. So we just have the regular ozone, primarily ozone and PM10, right, particulate matter 10 microns. Across there. So we're doing pretty good. So what's my moral of the story? The moral of the story is that we're looking pretty good on air quality here, and whatever fires are there now are not really impacting us. That's all good news on that. All right. Heading on over to the Department of Labor press releases here. All right, U.S. Department of Labor, where do we start here? Well, we'll start at the beginning. U.S. Department of Labor awards $2 million to Kentucky to help workers affected by layoffs at the Bluegrass Area Development District. The U.S. Department of Labor today awarded $2 million to Bluegrass Area Development District Incorporated in Kentucky to support employment and training services for people affected by layoffs at the Bluegrass Chemical Agent Destruction Pilot Plant in Yokohama and Yokohama Industries, America. In March 2025, Bluegrass Chemical Agent Destruction Pilot Plant layoffs began and are expected to continue into 2026. The total number of individuals impacted is estimated to be 1,500. In addition, Yokohama announced a closure that will impact 250 workers and begin at the end of May 2025. That's already started. They just released this today, the 18th. So a couple of weeks behind. All right, layoffs at suppliers and other local businesses are also anticipated because of these closures. Administrated by the Employment and Training Administration, this National Dislocator Work Grant will allow the Bluegrass Area Development District, one of 15 development districts in Kentucky, to provide training and skills development and services for dislocated workers seeking assistance in Anderson, Bourbon, Boyle, Clark, Eastville, Fayette, Franklin, Garrett, Harrison, Jessamine, Lincoln, Madison, Mercer, Nicholas, Powell, going on and on and on counties. Now, let's see here. You know, you hear these obscure government agencies here, so this is probably one we're going to bookmark here. Now, I'm reading this, and again, none of this is planned. I'll pull up some stories, but I try to give you my first reaction here. Now, like we say at the beginning of the program, right? I'm usually not involved in this stuff, right? We're not involved in these. I'm slightly on the margins involved in this. 30 years ago, one of my first big road jobs, where I was on the road away from home, was at Bluegrass Army Depot. So Bluegrass Army Depot, there are two of them. There's one in east of Lexington, one south of Lexington, right on the interstate. And we're involved. I was involved in some PCB cleanups there at this facility. Now, what happened was, apparently I haven't kept up. Things have been changing. They've been doing cleanups there and everything else. So apparently this was in that area, right? Because they had just turned that into a jobs center there. And I was working on, it was Army Corps of Engineers sort of thing. So I'm a little bit familiar with this. U.S. Department of Labor, at least the facility. The U.S. Department of Labor awards $1 million in disaster relief jobs. Let's see what the hell that is. This was today. The U.S. Department of Labor today awarded $1 million in grant funding to support disaster relief jobs and employment and training services in Kentucky for Kentucky residents suffering from the aftermath of severe storms. And beginning on Valentine's Day this year through March 7th, a severe weather system generated heavy torrential rain, flash flooding, and landslides that damaged public infrastructure, utility distribution systems, and private property in Kentucky. This followed severe weather and multiple disasters in the state that led to widespread destruction and numerous fatalities in 2024 and 2025 that impeded recovery efforts. The concurrent disaster events led to significant economic losses and challenges in rebuilding and recovery efforts, and the state is assessing the full impact of the affected areas. FEMA issued a major disaster declaration enabling Kentucky to request federal assistance for recovery efforts in the 67 counties, and I'm not going to read them all. It goes on and on and on. The Disaster Recovery Nationally Dislocated Work Grant allows the Kentucky Office of Employment and Training to provide residents with temporary jobs focused on cleanup and recovery efforts, as well as offer employment and training services to eligible participants in affected communities. And it goes on and on and on. So that's good. Today, the Unemployment Insurance Weekly news release, right? And the week ending June 14th. And I think they released this a couple of days early because it's normally done on Thursday and Friday, I believe. Or at least it may be published, but then it's embargoed, right? Whatever. In the week ending June 14th, the advance figure for seasonally adjusted initial claims is 245,000, a decrease of 5,000 from previous week's revised level. The previous week's total was revised up by 2,000 from 248 to 250,000. The 4-week moving average was 245,500, an increase of 4,750 from the previous week revised average. This is the highest level for this average since August 19, 2023, when it was 246,000. The previous week's average was revised upward by 500 and going on and on. The advanced seasonally adjusted uninsured unemployment rate was 1.3% for the week ending June 7th, unchanged from the previous week. So you can see, I mean, they release these, but they're pretty much hold steady for the most part. Right? And then they go up, they go down, they go up, they go down, they go up, they go down with that. So, anyway, they release it, so I mention it. Now, here is the next one. This is from last week, or actually the 16th, which was this week. This is from Twin Falls, Idaho. U.S. Department of Labor has reached an agreement with a South Central Idaho grocery store requiring the employer to pay $250,833 in civil money penalties, $5,078 in back wages, and damages, and take steps to ensure future compliance with federal child labor laws after investigators found child labor and wage violations at numerous locations. Settlement follows an investigation by the department's Wage and Hour Division that determined Swenson's Magic Markets violated federal child labor laws. And again, everyone's innocent until proven guilty. I don't know what they're going to do here. By allowing 6 minor-age workers to work in hazardous duties such as cleaning meat slicers, meat tenderizers and grinders, loading trash compactors, and operating a rotisserie. Swenson's Magic Market also required youth to work outside of legally allowed hours and employed a 13-year-old child, which is under the legal age of employment in non-agricultural jobs. Early work experience, and this is from Wage and Hour Division District Director Catherine Wallum, early work experience should not come at the expense of a child's well-being and educational opportunities. Federal law protects young workers from dangers involved in the operation and maintenance of commercial-grade equipment and ensures they are not working late hours on school nights. Employers who are unclear about child labor laws should contact the U.S. Department of Labor to get their questions answered. In addition to the child labor violations, the division found that Swenson's Magic Markers failed to combine all work hours from various locations, resulting in overtime violations for 3 workers who did not receive additional half overtime pay hours for hours worked over 40 in a work week. The division recovered $2,539 in back wages and an equal amount in damages for those workers. Employers must abide by child labor laws and regulations, added Wallum. Employers, parents, and school personnel should visit youthrules.gov website to learn how to protect young workers. And we'll talk about that right now here. So I'm clicking on the link for federal child labor laws. And let me point out is that you can be in violation of child labor laws, right, on the federal level, but there are also state laws that go along with this. So here we have find out what jobs and tasks are off limits for anyone under 18 years of age. So this is right off of the website here, DOL.gov. Now, let me point out some things here. Usually, and this might just be because of the culture I grew up in central New Jersey, often our first jobs were when I grew up at least, maybe working flipping burgers. So you're working at a restaurant, you're working at a fast food restaurant, you're working at a diner, you're working as a bus boy or girl, you're working as something like that around food. So often what people do is they go on, and back in the day, this information was not readily available. And it should have been available to everybody. That's my pet peeve here. So they would go over here to meat processing and slicing. And you would hear, you're not allowed to, kids under 18 cannot operate power-driven meat processing machines such as meat slicers, saws, and meat choppers, wherever used, including restaurants and delicatessens. Kids under 18 cannot clean such equipment, including the hand washing of the disassembled machine parts. And kids under 18 cannot operate this machinery on items other than meat, such as cheese and vegetables. So if you have the old submarine or hoagies, you put the lettuce in there and you shred it. And then you had the tomatoes, assuming that they were firm, you could put it in there, or onions, right, for your subs in the deli. And then you slice up that ham and that provolone cheese, and you add a little bit of vinegar and oil and oregano. You got yourself one hell of a meal, right? So I digress. I know, I'm making everybody hungry. I mean, there was one Italian deli up in Ulster County, New York. I mean, you walk in there, and it's like you're bombarded. The olfactory senses. Even if you're recovering from COVID, you're going to be bombarded with Italian meat, and they smoke everything there. I mean, it's delicious. They don't smoke like in marijuana or a cigarette, but, they smoke the meat. So, it's a bombarded. Again, I'm hungry here. Kids under 18 cannot do most jobs in meat and poultry slaughtering, process, rendering, or packing establishments, right? And they have something, student learner exemptions, and you have hours of work permitted for occupations for 14 and 15-year-olds in non-agricultural employment, right? They have things, and it's a rather extensive list. So if you are employing or you are a parent or a guardian of a child, or I hope some children are listening to this, I'm hoping that we're inspiring people to work safely and to advocate for themselves here. But anyway, I would encourage you to go to these websites. First start here, right? So minimum age standards for employment, the FLSA, Fair Labor Standards Act, and child labor regulations establish both hours, right? So once a youth reaches 18 years of age, he or she is no longer subject to child labor law, right? And here they have a lot of the same stuff here. The restrictions, it gets a little bit in there. So here you go. Kids under 18 cannot operate or help on power-driven circulars, saws, bandsaws, guillotine shears, chainsaws, reciprocating saws, wood chippers, or abrasive cutting discs. Now, this is where you get into construction, where in the construction arena, guess what? It's very difficult for that culture often to address the rules like this. And the rules have been around since the 30s. Why? Because people ignored the rules for so many years. So, can you imagine I work construction at 17. Hey, Jimmy, get away from that reciprocating saw, that chainsaw. That's not going to happen. Especially when you're that young, you're working on usually non-union, almost always non-union, and you're working for smaller construction firms. Here we have another one, roofing. Kids under 18 cannot do most jobs in roofing operations, including work performed on the ground and removal of the old roof and all work on or about the roof. Kids under 18 cannot operate power-driven, right? So the woodworking machinery. Again, chainsaws, nailing machines, sanders, driving. Kids under 18 generally cannot drive motor vehicles or work outside the vehicle as a driver's helper to assist with tasks such as loading, unloading, or securing cargo. So if you have what is commonly called a lumper or a selector, right? And let's say that you have, and this happened all the time when I was growing up, where we had people who, we had, so you have an uncle, older brother, maybe a parent that worked in the trucking industry. So you have issues with childcare. I mean, with some kids. Again, most kids could be left alone during the day, 16, 17 years old. But sometimes, hey, you're going to get into trouble. I tell you what, why don't you come along with dad or even with mom to work, and I'll have you as a lumper on the truck. And everybody was okay with that back in the 80s, 70s and 80s, before that, when I grew up. And again, be a lumper. I'll show you how to do the job. And you're learning a valuable skill, which is how to load a truck. So you don't end up, now they wouldn't have known this 20 years ago, so you're not going to end up on YouTube, right? You're not going to end up on YouTube, at Home Depot loading your, Hyundai Sonata with 800 pounds of equipment and stuff. So you know how to do that. You can't do that, right? You can't, cannot work in that, right? To assist with tasks of loading, unloading, or securing cargo. Compactors and balers. Kids under 18, let me go back to here. Kids under 18 cannot operate, ride, or help use most power-driven hoisting apparatus, such as forklifts, non-automatic elevators, skid steers, and everything. So today I did some forklift training. I put that in there with that. So under federal labor laws, you're not allowed to operate basically anything at height. So compactors and balers, not allowed to do that. Right? Trash compactors, certain power-driven paper product machines. Explosives. Kids under 18 cannot work where explosives are manufactured or stored. Demolition. Kids cannot work do wrecking, demolition, and shipbreaking operations. Mining. Kids under 18 cannot do most jobs in mining at coal mines, metal mines, quarries, anything like that. Logging and forestry. Kids under 18 cannot do most jobs in forest fighting fires, forest fire prevention that entails extinguishing an actual fire, timber tract management, forestry services, logging, and sawmill. Not allowed to work with radioactive material. Not allowed to work with power-driven bakery machines. Brick and tire. Kids under 18 cannot do most jobs in the manufacture of brick, tile, or similar products. And kids under 18 cannot operate power-driven metal-working machines, including forming, punching, and shearing machines. Now we get into, especially with carpentry and with this here. I'll revisit that. Brick and tile. You can't do anything with the manufacture of brick, tile, or similar products. And children cannot do trenching and excavation work. So here we have some exemptions right here. So you have some exemptions if you are a student learner. The regulations provide a limited exemption for 5, here you go, number 5, which is power-driven woodworking machines. 8 and 10, what are those? Power-driven metal forming, punching, and shearing machines. Power-driven meat processing machines, slaughtering and meat packing plants. 12 and 14 is balers, compactors, and power-driven circular saws, bandsaws, guillotine shears. And 16, roofing operations and trenching excavation operations. The regulations provide a limited exemption for all of the things I just mentioned for apprentices and student learners who are at least 16 years of age and enrolled in approved programs. I imagine that would be some type of a jobs program or a vocational technical type situation. So with that, right, an approved program, meaning that you can't have, you can't have just, hey, you're going with him today and do whatever, believe that used to happen. Used to happen all the time back in the day, right? And let's go on to something else. Now, we're going to get into a little bit more, right? We're going on over, I tell you what, let's take a break here for a couple minutes and do some more commercials and music and fun things like that. Well, they're fun for me, at least.
Safety Wars is streaming now.
SafetyFM.com.
Is a beacon of hope. In a world where danger lurks in every corner, one man stands as a beacon of hope. Jim Posel, a veteran safety expert with over 3 decades of experience, now bringing his knowledge to you with Safety Wars. Engaging, informative, and always relevant. That's Safety Wars. Join the safety revolution with Safety Wars, available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts and videos.
Is your safety training old, stale, and hackneyed? Is your safety trainer still preaching a warped version of behavior-based safety? How about safety training that actually addresses your hazards in your workplaces and is not standardized baloney from 25 years ago? Contact the Safety Wars team at safetywars.com or call Jim Posel at 845-269-5772. Remember, if you're receiving this message, you are the solution to unsafe workplaces.
But never once showed you how to guard against a spark.
stacks of bandages tell of injuries galore. He trades respect for fear, nothing left to gain. Workers trade compliance just to dodge the blame. You give safety a bad name. You turn protection into pain. All your rules just fan the flame. You give safety a bad name. When the fire alarm rings, nobody trusts his call. 'Cause under all that pomp, he's the weakest link of all. He creeps around the job site with intimidation games, but his ledger's filled with scars, and he's the one to blame. You give safety a bad name. You turn protection into pain. All your rules just fan the flame. You give safety a bad name.
And that was Safety Warrior with You Give Safety a Bad Name. Yeah, we're going to release all, they keep telling me, Jim, you should release all this. Because some of them are, okay, yeah, it's AI music, but some of it's pretty good. We had this experience last week where, I think we've all, quote unquote, butt dialed people before, right? We accidentally dial numbers and stuff. With the phone, I did that when we had the old-fashioned analog phones with the flip phones. We had actual buttons. This happened to me a lot, but this happened with the AI program. It generated 3 songs that were hysterical. At least they're hysterical to me, and we'll be sharing one of them here. One of them is appropriate to safety. The other one is a political one that I was talking politics with someone. Hysterical. Anyway, let's talk about that song. You Give Safety a Bad Name. We've all had those people out there in our careers, if you've been doing this long enough, they make safety hell. Well, Jim, what do you mean they make safety hell? You shouldn't be talking about safety professionals that way. Yeah, I know. They may actually make safety hell. Or you get, a lot of times, these oversight people have limited safety experience. They make things hell. Case in point, we had this guy back at the Bayway Refinery mid-2000s. Right, he was not an employee of the refinery. We were working on a project there. Some of the listeners who were there will remember this person. And some of them outlandish rules, especially in them days, before human and organizational performance. And high-performing organizations always said human and organizational performance. They didn't call it that, but no, all this stuff got organized here with this, thanks to most of the people on this network. And what ended up happening was you would come out with the command and control because it's simple. You must wear a hard hat. You must do this. You must do that. One of the rules that this contractor came up with, and it was for years, on multiple different multiple different projects, was Anytime you left the ground, you had to wear a harness and a lanyard. Now let's remember, this is in the mid-2000s. All that companies really knew about, including safety professional, I was one of them, guilty as charged, was there was no training. Again, they did not train safety people because then all of a sudden you know something and now you have to enforce some kind of rule. It's like, well, stick with the plan, hard hat and safety glasses. So what ended up happening was you get these outlandish rules. And, they use the hierarchy of controls. You all know that PPE is like the least reliable means of preventing anything. It's, you kind of work through elimination, substitution, engineering, and administrative controls before you get to PPE. So they came up with a rule, and we know the second to last thing worse than PPE is administrative controls, meaning rules. Change the way the worker works. Good luck on that. So they came up with this rule. Anytime you leave the ground, you have to wear a harness and a lanyard. So, that means anytime that you go on a step ladder, 1 foot, right, one rung on the step, well, where are you going to tie to? Oh, that's not important that you tie to anything. You got to have the harness and lanyard on. Just in case. We got to instill it in you. And they ended up instilling only hatred towards the safety person. Because no manager would enforce that because they don't want to piss off the workforce. So they hired a safety professional to piss off the workforce. And I mean, I'm like, how this came about, I don't know. They had, we have to show that we are serious about enforcing safety rules. And how do we show that we're serious? By making up rules and firing people. And if there are more key people that we fire, we have a bigger commitment to safety. That's how it was managed. A lot of companies still manage them that way. And if you're on a federal project, a lot of times this is the way the old timers that manage the projects who never got a promotion, who are angry old men, usually, this is how they manage the project. But, but anyway, you go there and it's a living hell. And that's why eventually everybody hates safety and hates people making up safety rules. And that's how you end up with 1.2 million people dead from COVID because nobody wants to listen. Because this is what and the managers, including our Department of Transportation secretary, current one, they come up with, all these convoluted safety management things from 30 years ago, 40 years ago, that everyone knows doesn't work. I digress. I guess this qualifies as a rant, which I haven't had lately. So you end up they end up with all these rules, and so it's like I'm on a catwalk over a couple of processed pipes. And we are approximately 3.5 feet off the ground. The catwalk has a top rail, a mid rail, a toe board, no openings on the deck. It's fully intact. Well, you got to wear a harness and lanyard on that. Well, I'm just walking from here to here. Well, you got to wear a harness and lanyard. You're off the ground. Really? So what do you think happened? We got through this job. Eventually, I left the job because this guy was just too much. And the whole way that they were managing things, they're just, with that. And by the way, when I went back to work at the Bayway Refinery, they were still recovering from what this company did. And this company that managed this, to Bayway's credit, never, ever went back and was never invited back to my knowledge on this because of the way that they managed this. Was like, I was there. It took 10 years for the safety culture to recover from this one guy. It was actually him and his boss and his management. So more than one guy, but mainly him. And through no fault of his own, he was new. He was freaking new here. So we got through the job, no big injuries. The job got done. turns out I go to work at another facility where this company that did this, they realized the error of their ways. And the first day on the job, one of the vice presidents had to manage the job. And he said, and they had an open office. And he says, if I hear any of the baloney that you pulled here at that other facility, the people were there, you're fired on the spot. Right? Safety-wise, you're fired right on the spot. Right? Because I have to be here because you people antagonize and the word on the blah, blah, blah. And again, very successful project. Got through it. We started to get chinked away on that adversarial stuff. So, through the job, they were giving us jobs shirts, right? You get jobs shirts. They were not as nice as the Safety Wars jersey that I'm wearing, but they're pretty nice. And they had the company name on there, and they had a company a project mascot and everything else. So we ended up going to, after that job, and this is like 3 years later, we end up going to Ohio. And we're working over in Logan, Ohio, middle of nowhere, very nice town, very low population, really nice people, friendly people. I can't say enough nice things about Logan, Ohio. And I'm working the night shift because they needed somebody who's experienced working the night shift on this project, and we're working the night shift. And guy comes up to me, and I'm wearing this shirt. You're wearing a shirt. It's night. You're wearing t-shirts. You're not dressed. Nobody's there. And so we're all in a t-shirt. And the guy says to me, Jimmy. I said, yeah. He says, Jimmy, are you, do you work for them? And I said, no, I don't work for them. And he says, do yourself a favor. Take that shirt off. Change it. He said, why don't you just go back to wherever you're staying, and why don't you change your shirt, because you can't wear that shirt here. I said, why? Well, we work with so-and-so, blah, 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 from such and such a company, and he got us all fired over stupid rules like you got to wear a harness and a lanyard every time you leave the ground, and blah, blah, blah. And these guys have PTSD. He says they're like shaking. They're like, it was such a bad experience working with. And I said, really? And I talked directly, dude. And they mentioned every name on that job from the management group that I had to deal with. Every name on them. They said, if we ever see those MFs, they didn't say MF, anywhere, we're killing them. We're going to beat the living blah, blah, blah out of them if we ever see them again outside of work. So, again, PTSD, was that really worth it? Ruin your reputation in safety, make safety difficult for everybody out there? No, I don't think so. And we're going to, with that, we're going to cut away, and we're going to come back later on. The live program is starting in a few minutes, and we will talk to you in a couple minutes. So we'll see you there. This was pre-recorded.